The very first official Shine Bright interview is with Sally Duddleston of Sally's Sofa. We met on a mutual Facebook group and I loved her work so much I asked if she'd be willing to collaborate with me, and thus we created our beautiful audio stories, downloadable for children and adults, with one of Sally's beautiful handmade felt characters. Honestly, talking to her, all the things she went through, what an honour to speak with her and to realise how she came out the other end to truly shine bright. It was a genuine pleasure talking to her. Sally lives in the Highlands of Scotland, so her broadband was too slow to have an interview by video call. So instead, we recorded it on the good old-fashioned telephone. I have turned it into a video using photographs of some of Sally's beautiful work, all handmade with love. Enjoy. And welcome Sally Duddleston, our very first official Shine Bright. So Shine Bright, Sally Duddleston, tell me, who are you? Where were you born? Let's go all the way back there.
Oh, crikey. Well, a long way back. I was born in Wales, actually,
Oh, wow. Where in Wales?
in Aberystwyth.
Okay.
My mum is Welsh. She grew up in Borth, which is mid Wales,
Okay.
a little coastal town.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we lived there in Aberavon till I was about 2, I think. And
Okay.
then we moved to Shropshire.
Oh, lovely.
Yes, yes, which was very nice. That's where I grew up, was Shropshire.
Okay.
Went to school there,
Right.
went to college there, and yeah, we were really, really lucky. I mean, where we lived, we had the local showground actually right behind our house.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and
So you would have seen all sorts going
so
on.
I think, well, we were just lucky to have a childhood where we could
Mm,
just, roam over the fields all day and
right.
no one was really bothered. So
Yeah, the freedom.
we had a lot of freedom, which was great.
That's
And
amazing. So do you classify yourself as Welsh or English, or do you not label yourself in that sense?
well, it's funny actually you should say that, because I suppose growing up I've always probably, if anything, I'd say I possibly thought of myself as English.
Okay.
But like you say, I never really sort of put a label on myself.
Uh-huh.
Um, but in recent years, I don't know whether I've just started to feel a bit closer to a sort of Welsh heritage,
Oh,
really.
that's
And
interesting.
yeah, and I
That's-
don't really know why.
Okay.
But I do now, I would say I definitely feel more Welsh and would be proud to say that I'm
Ah,
Welsh. So,
ah. And
so
do you
I'm
actually speak Welsh? No,
no,
you
I
don't. Uh-huh.
don't.
Mm-hmm.
My mum does, and
Okay.
that's her first language. I mean,
Wow. Uh-huh.
but for some reason we never learnt Welsh.
Right. And once you
But
moved, it was maybe harder, like it
yeah,
wasn't around you the same way, perhaps.
well, probably yes, and because she didn't have any of her Welsh relatives close
Mm-hmm.
by, she wasn't.
Yeah.
She only sort of spoke Welsh on the phone to people, I suppose.
Right.
Uh,
Uh-huh.
but yeah, I guess I'm half Welsh, half English because my dad's English. So
Okay. Okay.
I
And
don't.
again, it's often irrelevant. I think there's something with our past and our heritage, but it doesn't necessarily even need to be our blood, does it? It can be that,
No, that's
at
true
the end of the
actually.
day, who are we? That's just a tiny part. So high
Yeah.
school was also in Shropshire.
So yes, it was.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
in the town where I grew up,
okay.
and um, yeah, and actually at school, one of my favourite subjects was art and design. and art.
Okay, right.
We had two different classes. We had one was art and design, and then just art. And even back then, I used to love doing cross stitch, and I
Oh,
remember,
wow.
yeah, and I just
Wow.
remember doing little. Actually, I remember doing little tiny cross
Did
cross stitch
you?
pictures and stitching them onto a blanket, I think,
Wow, that's
making like a little baby's
amazing.
blanket.
Oh,
And then,
wow.
oh, and in our art and design class,
Uh-huh.
um, oh, I remember winning a competition to design some packaging for OXO.
Oh, amazing. That is so cool. Oh, I
But it's
love
weird
that.
because I was quite good, well, pretty good at drawing back
Uh-huh.
then.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know if I just got out of practice years later, but I just totally seemed to lose the ability to draw. It was very strange.
Wow.
But
Have you
it seems
tried
to be coming,
recently?
yes,
Okay.
it seems to be coming back, so this
That's
is good.
amazing. That's very
Because
interesting.
actually all my felt decorations that I make, they all start off as a little sketch
Ah,
um, and
lovely.
design.
I
So
did wonder
yeah.
actually. So in high school, you were really good at the art and creative side. Did you have a sense that you wanted to go into the creative industry at all?
Well, I think it was harder back then to I don't remember having a definite sense of what I wanted to do. And I
Okay,
think it was harder back then. We didn't have the internet, so we couldn't just sort of go online and have a look at what careers you could go into and how to get into them.
right.
We literally had like someone we had, went into an office and spoke to someone about what we thought we might want to do, and they'd basically say, "Oh well, that's a load of rubbish. I don't think you can do that." I don't
Yeah,
know,
exactly, especially
but
in the arts. No, 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 you'll
yeah,
never make money as an artist. You know what they were
wasn't
like.
very encouraging.
In
But I
fact, probably
remember
still are.
speaking to a friend about this because she's
Uh-huh.
about the same age as me, and she said the same. She said, "Oh, we just had no idea in those days
Mhm.
that you could have like had a career in, say, textile design,
Uh-huh.
fashion
Yeah.
design, or anything like that because I don't, just no internet."
Yeah.
So
It's
it's weird,
really
really.
interesting, isn't it? And it's sad. And bearing in
Yeah,
mind, you would have thought that Shropshire, they would have had an affinity with
I know.
textiles or
Yeah.
crafts in the general sense,
Well,
wouldn't
yes,
you?
that's true. Yeah, yeah. So
It
I think
is
I just
interesting. Hmm.
we, we were, yeah, just seemed very limited to as in what we could sort of
Uh-huh.
think of to do in those days.
Yeah. So what did you go
And
on to do first of all when you left
well,
school?
I actually trained as a beauty therapist. Um, yes.
Wow. Oh,
So
that's amazing, which of
I
course
know.
is creative too in its
Well,
own way.
exactly, it is. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
that's incredible, as well as healing in many ways.
Yes, well, quite, yeah. And so that was just 2 years of training, and I went on and worked as a beauty therapist for about 9 years, I think.
Wow. And still in
Um,
Shropshire, is this?
that was in, yeah, various parts of Shropshire.
Okay.
I went to college in Shrewsbury, which is a
Okay.
gorgeous town, actually. It's
Mm,
really nice.
mm.
Um, then I worked in Shrewsbury for a while, and uh, well, then I was actually self-employed for a while, doing
Okay.
had a little mobile beauty therapy
Oh,
business actually,
lovely. Very good.
hauling this huge portable couch around, and goodness knows
That's
what.
amazing. God, that would have been very advanced, wouldn't it? Like, because people
Oh
do that
no,
now.
yeah, true,
That would have been a way ahead of its time, I would have thought.
yeah.
But good for
And then
you.
I seem to remember having a little room at the back of the hairdressers actually for a
Oh,
while.
sweet. Wow, so you've been there and all that. And then, so
So that was in early, well, late teens, early
That
20s, basically to a 30 kind
yes,
of time.
it would have
Okay.
been early to mid-20s. That would have been, I think, which would have been sort of early to mid-90s.
Okay.
And then I think I just grew a bit bored and disenchanted with what I was doing. I don't know.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but I was definitely going through a bit of depression at the time as well.
Right.
And I saw an advertising for beauty therapists to work on cruise liners, and I got in my head, I just became totally obsessed with this idea. That's what I want to do, and no one could tell me otherwise, that I wasn't suited to that or anything. So I applied for that and had to go down to Stanmore in Middlesex, I think, for the
Wow.
interview. We had to do a test, whatever, and I got through anyway. And so then you got sent down again to Stanmore in Middlesex. That's where the training centre was. And we were all put up. Our accommodation was the YMCA in
Oh.
Watford. Oh my.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
That's so cool. And then, so did
Yeah,
you
it
end
was
up on the
mad.
ships?
Yeah, it was crazy because you had the really intensive training there, in Stanmore, but you had no idea how long you'd be doing it for, because
Right.
literally there were some of us who'd been there like a week and others more, well, a few weeks, and you'd literally suddenly at the end of a day with no warning, you'd just say, right, you need to get down to the head office down the road. And you go in there and they just said, oh, right, you need to get on a flight from Heathrow Airport at 9 o'clock in the morning and fly out to Miami to get on your cruise ship.
Wow. Wow.
I know, it was
What a
crazy.
life. And so where was your first, well, where did you have to fly out for your first cruise? Can you recall?
So I had to flew out to Miami,
Okay.
and that was the furthest I'd ever flown, I think, as
Uh-huh.
well,
Uh-huh.
on my own as
That's
well.
amazing.
And I actually wasn't very well. I started to become really ill in that
Right.
training.
Okay.
Diet wasn't brilliant. Yeah. So we had to fly out to Miami and then have all these medicals there, and then get on your cruise ship at Fort Lauderdale.
Okay. And
Yeah.
yet, so even though you weren't feeling well and you weren't looking after yourself, you still
Oh.
passed the medical?
Well, yes, I did. It was all a
Mm.
bit of a blur now, and I think when I was still in Stanmore doing the training, I knew that it wasn't right for me. But,
Okay.
because I was so determined that that
Absolutely.
is what I wanted to do.
Uh-huh.
And we'd had this huge, like, leaving party for me at home and everything.
Mm.
Obviously, pride wouldn't say,
Yeah.
this isn't right. I'm not well. I
Yeah,
need to just
yeah.
go home and
Right.
get well again. So pushed myself on. But it was nightmare. Like, I got on this cruise liner, and I now know that I was already suffering from burnout and adrenal exhaustion,
Okay.
whatever,
Okay.
post-viral stuff.
Right. Right.
But yeah, so got on this cruise liner and they completely cocked up and there wasn't even a blinking room for me on there. So it's
Wow.
just pure. I remember going on and they were showing me the sleeping quarters,
Uh-huh.
and it was just a corridor with a load of what looked like broom cupboards,
Uh-huh.
basically,
Uh-huh.
which is
Yeah,
what I thought.
sure. Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
I think I actually have got bigger cupboards at home than our accommodation. So
Oh,
we
I
were
love it.
sharing, it was like two to a cabin.
Wow.
But yeah, I've got a bigger cleaning cupboard here, I think.
That's amazing. So how long did you last on the cruise
Do
line?
you know what? I think I only lasted a week and it literally felt like a lifetime.
Did it?
Yeah, I wasn't coping at all. Now, I've never been seasick in my life
Uh-huh.
before then.
Uh-huh.
I've been loved going on boats, been on
Uh-huh.
tiny little fishing boats
Mm-hmm.
out to lighthouses and stuff on massive waves, no problem at all.
Wow.
On this massive cruise line, oh my God, it was
Wow, that's interesting.
I know it was weird,
Because
really
they say well, unless
disorientating
it's
and
so stormy, you hardly feel it
ah,
ordinarily. People say that is
well,
very interesting.
yeah. So I
So,
found that hard to deal with as well because I
uh-huh.
just felt constantly dizzy.
So a week
And then,
later, you left, basically.
yeah, I did not deal well with it at all.
Right.
Well, for a start, we were having to do at least 5 full body massages a day.
Yeah, of course.
Uh,
Hard work,
and
isn't it?
I think it was mostly Americans passengers on there.
Mm-hmm.
They were all quite large, shall we say.
Okay.
So
Okay, so that was hard work then,
it was very hard work,
in
yeah.
between being seasick.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Although luckily, I don't think I actually was seasick, yeah, just
Right,
so,
just feeling it, right. Uh-huh. The
but I
top
was just,
picture is
yeah,
coming. Uh-huh.
yeah, I was just got to a point, I was just desperate by then to get off, fantasizing about how to get off this ship, you know.
Oh, wow.
Oh dear.
Wow. So did you go straight back to Shropshire after that?
So I did go straight back home, yeah.
And how was the pride? How did that
Uh,
feel? Did by then
I
you didn't
think,
care?
I think, yeah, I don't think I cared by then.
Yeah.
I think I was
Yeah.
just so unwell that I just didn't
Uh-huh.
care, but I did feel a lot of pressure. Well, actually, it's interesting because I remember feeling a lot of pressure, mainly from my mum, to get straight back out there looking for another job.
Mm-hmm.
But really, I should have given myself more time to recover.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Just to come back to
yeah,
yourself after that
yeah,
whirlwind. Mm-hmm. And take care of you. So what
yeah.
did you go end up doing after that?
I found another job in a beauty salon
Okay.
in Whitchurch in Shropshire.
Okay.
Stayed there for a good few years.
Okay. So it was still, yeah,
Um,
so it was still the same industry
so we're
and
still in the same industry, but I can't
yeah,
remember.
taking care of other people over yourself
Yeah.
too.
Well, this is the other thing you see. Yeah. Again, I mean, I carried on for a good few years. Health wise, just getting worse and worse, getting every illness under the sun.
Mm,
Um, yeah, and I remember I can't remember how I left that place and ended up somewhere else. Actually, ended up at a salon in Stafford.
okay.
Um, and boy, oh boy, very strange people. If anybody from Stafford listens to this, I shall apologise now, but my experience was not good
Well,
of the
thank you.
people of Stafford at all.
I appreciate that. And do you know what I want to say? I think my grandmother was born in Stafford.
Oh, really? Oh, dear.
I'm going to find out for sure. The name, for some reason, I have an affiliation with it somehow. I will find out.
Ah,
But no
that's
offense
interesting.
taken. So stress not. But that's interesting. Okay, so you didn't feel it at home there.
No, not
Mm,
at all. No, no. And funnily enough, I remember there was another girl who'd just left before me. Um, and actually managed to speak to her, and she had exactly the same experience. She was bullied out of it, basically, and the same thing happened to me. Uh,
wow.
so yeah,
Wow. And the same
yeah,
company was that?
yes, it was.
Wow.
Yes,
Wow.
yeah.
That
It
is
was only a little small salon, family owned, above a chemist.
okay.
Um, but yeah, it's totally just bullied out of it. It was
Wow.
unbelievable, actually. Yeah,
Wow. Gosh,
yeah.
so how did that impact you when you were already not feeling
Well, I was
best?
getting worse and worse, and I was finding that I literally was falling asleep on the job. It was
Right.
like I couldn't stay awake,
Mm,
which I now know why that was.
mm-hmm.
But at the time, I mean, and I was going back and forth to doctors, and of course they were no blooming help. Oh, it's a
Uh-huh.
virus. Go home and rest. Like,
Right.
how long am I supposed to rest
Yeah.
for? You know.
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh.
So I was just really, I think I was just really disillusioned by then, and because I wasn't feeling well, I was just decided I just couldn't do it anymore,
Okay.
and wanted to retrain, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I ended up going back to college in Stafford actually, and doing um, a few different computer courses,
Okay.
um, and then got a few temping jobs
Mm-hmm.
um, locally in Shropshire as well. Can't remember what I did now. Maybe I did a few different things before I ended up working actually for the NHS in the local hospital.
All right. Okay.
Which it was in the records department,
Ah, right. Okay.
and on the main hospital booking in desk actually, and then
Okay.
yeah, but I really enjoyed it because of the
Right.
people I was working with, because it was just
Oh,
such a great team of people. I mean, what a difference
right.
that makes is,
Oh,
it's
absolutely.
everything, isn't it? The
Absolutely.
people that you work with.
Who we surround ourselves with, both
Yeah,
personally
totally.
and professionally, has such an impact on us. That's
It really does.
incredible.
It
So,
really
how
does.
long were you there at the
I can't
NHS records?
remember
No, okay, but a while, a good
actually.
while,
Must
would you
be.
say?
Oh yeah, I was there a while, and because I started off temping and then got taken on
Mm-hmm.
properly,
Uh-huh.
uh,
I thought we ain't
and
letting Sally go.
yeah, and was on one of the clinics actually for a good
Okay.
while, on the desk there.
Nice.
Um, and then, but still just not well at all. In fact, I was only managing to work part-time and still
Wow.
feeling pretty horrendous.
Okay.
Just literally dragging myself around, and
Wow.
oh, um, and ah, my that actually was when my dad was diagnosed. He was diagnosed with bowel cancer.
Okay.
Um, so he had to take early retirement.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and my parents had, their dream had always been to have a guest house, B&B somewhere.
Uh-huh.
Um, so they were looking at various places. They looked all over the country. Wales, of course, because that's where my mum was from.
Of course.
South of England, various places. And we always used to come up to Scotland on holiday in
Nice.
in the in the 80s when me and my sister were and
Uh-huh.
we always used to come up to Aviemore
Oh, amazing. I love
and just
Aviemore.
absolutely loved it.
Hmm.
And
It's a great place, a great vibe,
yeah,
and so many different kinds of people visiting, of course.
exactly, yeah. So so I think that was my suggestion while they were looking for a guest house tomorrow. I said, well, what about the Cairngorms? You know, why don't you
Wow.
go and look up there? Because we loved it so much up
Uh-huh.
there. So they looked at quite a few up here, I do believe, and then finally found one here in Carbridge that they
Wow.
bought.
That.
And I don't know, I don't actually remember making a conscious decision that I wanted to come up here,
Okay.
but I did say, well, I'll come up as well.
Right. Right.
Even though I was enjoying the job I was in,
Just,
I don't really know what was
mm,
behind that decision to.
something just pulled you. That's
Yeah,
so
yeah.
interesting.
Maybe it was family. I just want, I
Uh-huh.
don't
Yeah,
know.
just staying together, and then your dad not being
Yeah.
well, maybe. But
Well, maybe.
But yeah, and so you all came up. So how
So we
long
all
ago was
came up.
that?
So that was actually 2003.
Okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
2003. We were really lucky because we came up in so yeah, we came up in the April 2003,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a heat wave up here.
Oh
There was
my word.
actually a water shortage. We had to stockpile bottled water.
Wow, that
And
sounds
so we were like,
horrible.
oh, this is brilliant if it's like this in Scotland. And of
Yeah,
course, it's never been like that ever again.
that's
It was
hilarious.
absolutely roasting
How
in
amazing.
April. And so we were
Wow.
ever hopeful, and no, it's never happened since.
Maybe this year. Maybe this year.
Well, yeah.
What else is possible? Oh, that is actually hilarious. That's
I
great.
know.
What a great introduction to the guest housing world. So, did
Yeah.
you help with the guest house?
Yeah, so my mum and dad bought the guest house. Um, but of course, it was let me think, how many bedrooms? I think there were 7 guest bedrooms.
Mm-hmm.
And then our living accommodation at the back was only 1 double room and a
Wow.
lounge and a kitchen. But of course, because
Wow.
well, there was me and my sister who were having to live at home at the time, so we had to use up 2 of the guest bedrooms, which wasn't ideal.
Oh, wow. That's
I
amazing.
know. So yeah, and both of us actually were not well. My sister actually had been diagnosed with ME after getting glandular fever at university. She
Wow.
had to leave She was at university in Aberystwyth actually,
Okay.
where we were born, and she had to leave before her final year,
Oh, oh,
which
that,
was a right
yeah,
bummer.
that's so disappointing for
I
her,
know. Yes.
I'm sure.
Yeah. And then that's kind of when I started to be not well at all, and
Mm,
just pushed on, just literally kept pushing myself on, which is probably the worst thing I could have done now.
uh-huh.
Think about it. But
Again,
so
again. So so you'd done that previously,
yes,
and
it
then,
was
mm-hmm,
yeah, and I can definitely see a pattern of that actually in my mum as well, because like growing up,
mm-hmm,
if she was ill, it would always be like, oh no, got to carry on, can't just stop and
uh-huh,
rest,
uh-huh.
gotta keep going, sort of
Mm.
thing. Um,
And it's interesting, isn't it? Because there are some places where that would be entirely appropriate,
yeah,
to have the gumption, to have the tenacity to keep going. And there are other times where it would be a complete unkindness to
yeah,
yourself.
yeah,
And
yeah,
what
definitely,
do we
yeah.
listen to? Do we
Well,
literally take time
yeah,
out to go, I I need to stop. I need to rest, to give,
mm,
to re-energize and gather myself, to then get the boost to carry on. And then
yes,
another time it might be, I'll push through this.
yeah,
It's very interesting.
it is.
So are you more aware of your body now, of your limits?
Oh, yeah, definitely, yeah. Um,
Has it just taken time for you to listen
uh,
to yourself?
it has
Mm-hmm.
definitely,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. But because even then, when we moved first moved up, I was, I think I started temping again then actually,
Okay.
doing a few different things,
Uh-huh.
and then finally got a temping job with the Highland Council actually, just outside Aviemore,
Mm-hmm.
which again I absolutely loved,
Oh,
um,
good
but
people. More good
was
people.
again working only part time and barely managing that,
Right.
literally dragging myself in every day, feeling like death warmed up. And it was just getting worse and worse. And it was just really bad timing because they were literally about to take me on permanently when I
Oh,
just completely crashed
just
and just
crashed.
knew I couldn't carry on.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Um. So yeah. Ooh. And then actually I was diagnosed with ME,
Okay.
and not long after that an autoimmune condition, which I was never really told anything about, and I now know it was never treated properly.
Okay.
And I've found out more about it myself the last few
Mm-hmm.
years, and now realise that everything I went through from teenage depression to illness onwards was caused by this.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
yeah,
So do you
it's been a
think,
real eye opener
yeah,
actually.
absolutely. And did you do you think it's because not much was known about
Yes.
immune
Well,
conditions
this
then? Well, still
specifically,
isn't, but let's emphasize that actually.
yeah, definitely, because
Mm-hmm.
it means I can't absorb B12 in the gut, and
Right.
there is a serious lack of education amongst the medical profession on B12
Mm-hmm.
deficiency,
Yeah, definitely.
or just nutrient deficiencies in
In
general.
general.
And
Uh-huh.
just what I've learned about it the last few years, I mean, I would never, if someone had said to me when I was feeling like I literally felt like I was dying, and I now know I actually was, because things were shutting down,
Wow.
and it was only diagnosed when it was very, very advanced.
Right.
But if anybody had said to me at the time, B12 deficiency or any vitamin deficiency, I'd have poo-pooed it and been like, don't be stupid, there's no way that can do this.
Uh-huh.
Well, hell,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Amazing. Amazing.
But it can, and yeah, I think doctors in the UK only get about, in the whole medical training, they think they only get about 4 hours of training on
Mm,
nutrients,
yeah.
well, nutrition and vitamin
Uh-huh.
deficiencies. I think
Exactly.
it
I've
might
heard
be,
that previously.
yeah,
But yeah, might have it was a long time ago I heard that, and it may have changed slightly, but
yeah,
I
it
don't think
might be different now.
I don't think there's still a huge lack anyway. It's not a
Yeah,
huge
definitely.
increase in what the oh, it's incredible, isn't it?
So,
So in many
yeah,
ways,
and the B12 Society actually are trying to get an education program up and running for GPs.
oh wow,
Um,
good.
so
Oh,
which is good.
all power
So
to
hopefully
them.
something might change. Yeah,
Absolutely. That would be amazing, wouldn't it? Because it must
yeah.
be impacting so many people. And
Oh,
like
yeah.
you, they don't know.
No, and because they don't know, it's diagnosed as so many different things, which
Mm,
and the thing is with allopathic medicine that they're not trained to find a root cause and treat the root cause. They're only
yeah,
trained to treat symptoms with
exactly.
pharmaceuticals,
Sure.
and
Cover it up. Just,
yeah,
yeah,
exactly,
a
yeah, yeah,
band-aid, as it were. Yeah,
yeah,
that's a very good
totally, yeah.
point. So, would you say, do you have your condition under control? Is it balanced now from the steps
Yes,
you're
I'd
taking?
say I'm slowly getting there because, well, the I was basically just stuck on the NHS starvation diet of 12 weekly B12 injections, which I didn't know wasn't enough,
Okay,
and they don't know that it's not enough,
all right.
and I was just feeling no better. It's got to be 18 years now since I was started on those.
Wow.
But I was never told anything about it and how serious it was, and was just never feeling any better on those,
Mm-hmm.
and it was always like, oh well, it's your ME that's causing those symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
but then I was really lucky to find an absolutely brilliant B12 support group on Facebook actually a couple of
Oh,
years ago.
good old
Thank God
Facebook.
I did.
Wow, how
Oh,
amazing.
well, I just wish I'd had that and the internet decades ago, but thank goodness
Wow.
I did find it. And yeah, I just learned so much through them, and that's actually run by the B12 Society. So
Okay,
they're
okay.
extremely knowledgeable about it.
Wonderful. Well, we'll definitely
Um,
put the links in for them, for anyone that's going through the same thing or are
yeah,
interested
because
in finding more, because that's so helpful. Thank you for
yeah,
mentioning them.
but I think I'm just seeing it in everyone now. I think I've become a bit obsessed.
Yeah, well, you would do.
Even like,
It's like when you know that, you could have had help so much earlier. Now, of course,
yes,
you
I
want
think
to
that's
pass
it.
on that
Yeah,
knowledge, isn't
yeah,
it?
yeah.
Save the world.
And it's just because there's just so many conditions that of where that's the underlying cause,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
oh,
yeah.
anyway.
Exactly. We
Oh,
won't get
but
resentful.
no.
You've grown as a result, I'm sure.
Oh gosh, yeah. But and then I found it's good, and it was just such an eye opener. I couldn't believe it, and actually ended up having to source my own B12 to treat myself at home, and
Wow.
finally starting to see huge improvements
Oh,
actually in
wow.
anatomy. But I think,
Congratulations. What a
oh
difference.
gosh,
So a new you,
I know.
you'll feel
Yes,
really.
literally a new me. And the most unbelievable thing that I have found is that my personality has literally completely changed. It's
Wow.
unreal. Like growing up, I was always painfully shy,
Uh-huh.
super oversensitive.
Mm.
Literally had a terror of having to socialize,
Wow.
frightened of people. Oh,
Wow.
like you had to force words out of me. I could barely speak.
Oh,
And
amazing. That's
um
amazing.
just super sensitive to like loud noises, lights, crowds, anything like that. Overstimulation.
Uh-huh.
Um Depression, anxiety,
Wow.
really,
So
really,
who
yeah.
so who is the new you? How would
So
you
now
describe the
I
new you?
feel like I'm now the complete opposite because you can't shut me up. And
I love it, which is very handy considering we're here to let you
yeah.
shine bright, isn't it? So that's amazing.
And I now love socializing. Who'd have
Oh,
thought?
wonderful. That's
It's crazy.
amazing.
Yeah.
Good for you. That's
And
so
I
fabulous.
feel, well, like I say, once I started giving myself these B12 injections as frequently as I needed them,
Uh-huh.
um, the biggest change straight away was in my mental health.
Wow.
Um,
Wow.
I'd been
Gosh.
put on various antidepressants over the years and
Yeah.
always felt worse on them.
Yeah.
Came off them eventually, but and yeah, literally from giving myself these frequent enough B12 injections, the change in my mental health is unbelievable.
That's amazing.
Um,
Can I ask, do you, and I know that you're not a qualified physician,
no,
however, you've
exactly.
gone through things yourself. Do you get a sense that B12 could be of real benefit to the mental health absolute pandemic that we are going through?
Mm. Um, well, I would say it can definitely be a help for mental health in general.
Right.
Also, folic acid, interestingly enough, because B12 needs folic acid to be metabolized in the body, so it won't work without it.
Okay.
Um, but yes, I mean, I've read some real horror stories actually of young people being institutionalized with mental health issues and underlying B12 deficiency being ignored, and they've been put on psych meds, which
Wow.
deplete
Yeah.
essential nutrients
Well,
and stop you
exactly.
absorb, and have made the symptoms 100 times worse.
Mm,
And well, the worst's happened. They've
yeah.
ended up, and then in autopsies it's been found that they had B12 deficiency. I
Oh,
mean,
it's heartbreaking.
so, but the thing is with B12 is that it literally affects every system and function in the body.
Okay. So
So,
is there if we weren't short of it and took it, could it do harm?
Oh no, it
No.
couldn't. No, I mean,
So,
if you weren't deficient and you took B12, it wouldn't do any harm at all because it's
right.
completely non-toxic and it's water
Okay.
soluble. So any excesses
Yeah, just the
comes
body just,
out
yeah,
when you go to the
exactly.
toilet.
Just
Yeah.
so
So
I'm just wondering why we as a nation don't,
yeah.
just like doctors, why they don't go that route first.
Well, I think it's a lot to do with their training
Right,
because
again,
they're trained
back to the lack of, yeah, the
with
lack of it. Yeah.
pharmaceuticals in mind, aren't they? And
Yes.
but also because they get paid for prescribing
Yeah.
medications. They get
Yeah.
paid for prescribing
Mhm.
antidepressants.
Mhm.
Literally every time I've been to a doctor, without any symptom, physical or anxiety or anything, the first thing they say is, "Oh, let's have a look at what antidepressants we can prescribe you." And I'm like,
Right.
no, thank you.
Wow,
No,
that's
it's a
amazing.
bit scary actually. Yeah.
Yeah, it is scary, and I find it exasperating because here's something that does no harm and yet
Yeah,
potentially could do great
a lot of
good.
harm.
You
Yeah. Oh
know,
well, yes,
in
I
the with
see
the
what you mean.
B12,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and I just think, wow, and what are we
Exactly.
missing by
I know.
shoving, by putting a plaster over these conditions
Yeah.
that,
I think that's the problem. There's no incentive for them to
right,
prescribe it and
right,
treat that, whereas they
right,
get more incentive for,
uh-huh.
oh,
And
goodness.
yeah, exactly. And surely the actual incentive really needs to be on the
Yeah,
person being well.
yeah. And I think, I don't know, I think it's just that, when I was growing up, I always just assumed that doctors were trained to heal. And then
Mm-hmm.
I had a big
Mm-hmm.
eye opener that is just not true. They're not.
Yeah.
And I just think, why would you go into that profession wanting to help people get better? Surely when you get into it, it must be a real eye opener that it doesn't work like that. I don't know.
And I
But
guess I guess how easy it would be to kind of listen to the propaganda that
yeah,
they must receive in medical school because it's done this way. And okay,
yeah.
look at the nation. We're kind of healthy, or we're managing
Mm,
to extend lives by decades. Surely that's a good thing. Maybe that's
yes.
how they're looking upon it, as opposed to the quality of life
Yes, I think you're
people
right
have.
actually. Yeah.
So
Yeah, but
that's
I think that
amazing.
there really does seem to be a silent epidemic of B12 deficiency and other
Mm,
B vitamins as well, because a lot of it, I think, is to do with our depleted soils and there's
right,
just no nutrients in our
right.
foods anymore.
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah, and of course, so many of us just shoving fast food or
processed
pre-prepared.
foods.
Yeah, absolutely,
Yes,
absolutely.
and that's always another thing on my whole healing journey was learning about the things they put into foods to keep people addicted
Oh
and
wow, gosh,
just
that's a
things,
whole other talk.
chemical,
That's
oh,
amazing.
things that are put in that again stop you from absorbing nutrients.
Right, right.
And
Oh,
they totally mess up your whole gut health,
right.
basically. Um,
Oh,
and your
God.
gut, of course, is your second brain, so that directly affects your mental health as well.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I had absolutely horrendous gut issues for years
Wow.
with I think caused by the B12 deficiency because that's got better since I had more injections as well.
Okay.
And I know I definitely had leaky gut at one point,
Oh,
but that seems to
really?
be very common, again caused by all the chemicals and additives
Right.
we put
Okay.
into ourselves and things. Yeah.
God,
Ugh.
really, you're really making a stand for eating fresh food.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
I'm so glad that my daughter's
Well, I
boyfriend,
did
he's staying
actually.
with us, cooks fresh food because I
Yeah.
literally couldn't be bothered. That's a fact,
Oh, oh
really.
dear. Well, that actually was one thing I found was that I did actually have to completely change the way I was eating and just make everything from scratch and
Right.
completely cut out any junk food, processed
Right.
food.
Right. Everything.
Gluten was one thing I had to cut out, and I had to cut out refined sugar because I just
Oh,
was
right.
ill. It
Okay.
just made me feel
Okay.
horrendous.
Wow, that's amazing.
Uh,
Oh, wow, I'm so
so,
glad you've spoken. I do hope you're going to write about your experiences.
oh
Would you ever
gosh,
put a book together, do you think?
yeah, I've never even thought of that
Oh,
actually.
really?
No,
That's interesting. Well, see, just tune into that and see if it appeals, because I think you've
I
got
will.
so
Yeah,
much to offer with your, your own experience and what you've gone through. It'd be
yeah.
amazing.
But
Um,
that's really because, well, growing up, I kind of come from a crafty family anyway. Because growing
uh-huh,
up, I always loved making things and got that from my mum. I think learnt
uh-huh,
to sew and knit from her,
uh-huh.
and then it was when I was too ill to work. That's the thing that kind of kept me sane when I was well enough.
Right. I was going to say, so what did you do after you left the Highland Council when you could no longer like actually physically work? Did
Oh,
you rest? Did you take time out completely?
well, it was so hard for me, and I think now I know it's the way that it affected me because I just felt exhausted, but um, like I'd OD'd on caffeine all the time, like everything was on overdrive.
Mm.
So you're completely exhausted, but your body just won't let you rest because it's just gone into permanent overdrive. And this can actually happen to people after having a virus. This is possibly what
Oh,
long COVID might be as well. I think
that's
they found,
interesting.
well, this is interesting because they have found that COVID is depleting B12 in people. And I found a doctor, and I can't remember his name now, but he was actually treating long COVID with B12
Oh,
injections.
wow,
Yes.
amazing.
Um, but he
Amazing.
seems to be a rarity.
Well, I was just
Uh,
going to say few and far
hmm.
between, probably,
Yeah.
sadly.
Um, but yes, I suppose I was just, yeah, stuck at home, and it was really hard because with my parents having the guest house, seeing them kind of working themselves into the ground and not being able to help out was the
Yeah.
worst thing.
Mm.
And interestingly, um, well, I've had people saying, "Oh, lucky you not having to go into work." No, I'm sorry, but
Wow. Wow. Yeah.
like I just lost. Or it's one of the big learning curves for me has been learning to not to build my self-worth on other things and not what I do for a living, because
Absolutely. Yeah.
when I lost that, I just had literally no sense of self-worth at all.
Oh, wow.
It was
Well,
like,
like, yeah,
yeah,
because who am I when you've
well,
worked
yeah,
all your
exactly
life?
that. And
Mm.
interest, like, and I've noticed since, as soon as I meet somebody new, the first thing they ask you is, "Oh, and what do you do?" You know?
Yeah.
And it just seems to
Ah,
be an automatic thing, doesn't it?
yeah, it's an interesting question because I guess so many of us do associate ourselves with what we do as a profession.
Yes,
It's
exactly.
it's
Yeah.
also a safe question in some
Yeah,
ways,
that's
isn't
true.
it? Like,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
well, you probably work because I work, so and most people probably work. So what do you do is a safe way to reach out to our fellow
Yeah.
human people.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
So yeah, very interesting. Wow. So so you did nothing. You took your time, even though you didn't necessarily have a good feeling, a good sense of
Yeah.
that
I
that was
think
the right thing.
I find it really hard to just rest and not
Hmm.
do anything. Still,
Right.
guilt was a huge thing, and I've heard that from a lot of people who were diagnosed with like
Wow.
CFSME, that sort of thing. So guilt is a major thing then, because you just
Wow.
feel useless, and you feel
Right.
guilty for not being able to do anything.
Wow.
And
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
then
I was bedbound for about 5 years,
wow.
and I literally felt like I had the worst flu ever permanently.
Amazing.
I couldn't stand up to clean my
Wow.
teeth.
Gee. And then on top of
Oh,
that,
I can't.
you were seeing your parents working,
Yeah,
so
see, that was the hardest thing. I was seeing them working themselves
further
into the
guilt.
ground with the guest house, because thing is, they had such, they just set such high standards for themselves,
Yeah.
and wouldn't give themselves any time off.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and my mum was doing all the laundry herself, so she was sat in this tiny little laundry room all day. Oh,
Wow. Wow.
and and even when I was well enough to help out, it would take 4 of us till about 2 o'clock to finish doing 5 bedrooms,
Wow. It's a lot
and
of work. People don't
then
realize, do they?
no, they don't. Oh, my
Mm.
mum, bless her, because she'd be up at the crack of dawn doing breakfasts and things,
Mm.
which she did not enjoy, I have to
Oh, no.
say. And
Don't
then
blame her.
she'd get guests saying at breakfast, saying to him, "Oh, and what are you gonna do with the rest of your day?
Oh, that's
Anything nice?" And honestly,
so
she'd go,
funny.
who do
Cleaning
they
your
think's
sheets.
gonna clean? They'd soon notice if the bedrooms weren't clean.
Oh, that's so funny. Oh, wow.
I
So,
know.
so you were bed bound and to the
Oh,
stage where
don't.
you couldn't even stand to brush your
No,
teeth. That's
no,
incredible.
no.
And then, so what brought you out of that?
I don't know, it was weird. And now looking back, it was kind of cyclical. Like, I'd go through really horrendous periods. I mean, I went through a long period, and this was actually before we moved up here, now I think about it, where I just I think my body just totally broke down because I had what I thought, and it might have been a virus. But I was horrendously ill anyway, and after that, like it was like I literally physically couldn't eat. My body didn't have the energy to go through that mechanical process of eating and digesting
Wow.
at
Wow.
all.
So almost
That was
wanting to
scary.
shut down,
Yeah, I
not
now think
take
that's
in
what was
life.
happening,
Mm.
because I literally couldn't bear any sound, or I couldn't bear having television or music on or anything or
Wow.
anyone talking,
Wow.
and I literally didn't have the energy to speak.
Wow.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
amazing. Gosh. And then there you say you're making up for it now,
Yeah,
thankfully. So
which is
you
great.
came out of it without really recognizing
Yeah,
how.
yeah, and well, certainly when we were up here and at the guest house, yeah, again, I just went through really long periods of being horrendously unwell, and then seeming to get a little bit better, but I couldn't even walk around the house at one point. I had to try and walk to the end of the drive and back, I remember, and then just literally try and extend it by 5. I think it took me about 6 years to be able to walk for half an hour,
Wow.
without completely crashing. And
Amazing. Gosh.
uh,
God, it's just
yeah, and I remember
incredible.
trying to go to yoga, and oh dear, yeah, but it's just,
And
yeah.
you'd think
No.
yoga would be a gentle form of
Gentle, you
exercise, wouldn't
absolutely
you?
would, but it wasn't at all. And then I do remember reading afterwards about someone else who was, I think they were going through withdrawal from antidepressants or something, and it had totally messed up their nervous system. And I remember her saying that she couldn't do yoga because it was too much for her nervous system,
Wow.
which kind of makes sense actually, because it was my nervous system that was affected. So now I
Mm.
think,
Oh,
but
that's
you would
so
think yoga
interesting.
was really
Yeah,
gentle, but
of,
no.
of
And do you
anything.
know what I found
Mm-hmm.
when I couldn't really do any exercise and couldn't walk very far? Amazingly, I found a class by the Tai Chi Society, actually.
Oh, nice.
Started Tai Chi, and oh my God, it's the most amazing thing ever.
I love Tai
Oh,
Chi. That's beautiful.
it's just gorgeous.
Oh, how wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and of course, Tai Chi, like yoga in its own way, is a
Oh,
real form
totally.
of healing. But yeah, of course,
Yes,
very gentle, very
hugely.
sweet.
Yeah.
Oh, I did Tai Chi in Hong
And I
Kong, so
think,
I love it.
oh, did you? Oh God, I love
Mm.
it. so much, and I think that really helped strengthen. I think it helped build my muscles up,
Yeah.
and it definitely really helped with my balance and
Yeah,
just well everything
exactly. And
actually.
would have helped you become present,
Oh
out of
gosh,
your
yeah,
mind too.
yeah,
Oh, that's so
totally.
beautiful.
Oh,
So,
I just love it. I find that form of meditation works for me way
right,
better than
exactly.
say like sitting
Uh-huh.
meditation or anything.
Absolutely. Yeah, it does for a lot of people, especially if they've got very active minds. So that's brilliant. You
Well,
found
that was it.
something.
Yeah, yeah.
So then tell me what led to Sally's sofa?
So, well, it was then through being too ill to work, and when I did have periods of feeling well enough to do any sewing or anything, I found cross stitch was the thing that really helped. Because again, that's really meditative, isn't it?
Yeah,
Because
it's
you have to
true.
focus,
Mm-hmm.
and I just found that really helped take my mind off things and help me to relax a bit, I think.
Oh, uh-huh.
But I've just always loved making things anyway,
Mm-hmm.
and we've just always done that as a family, really.
Uh-huh.
And then I started making things for people as presents, and and then a group of local ladies in the village were lucky. Well, a few crafters were lucky enough to get a little space in the village to set up a little craft shop,
Oh,
which
sweet.
oh, it was great, and it was like a cooperative of crafters who, in exchange for selling our things that we make in
Uh-huh.
there, um, took it in turns to man the shop.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So
Oh,
it was
so really
actually,
a co-op then.
well,
That's
it was yeah,
lovely.
it was great, and actually, it was a
Mm.
guy, local guy, who he makes well, his company is Loch Ness Leather, so he makes leather goods,
Okay.
and he had this little sort of workshop space at home, and said, he would sell his stuff through there, and in exchange he would give it to us rent free, and he would just take like 25%,
Okay.
whatever, and we'd keep the rest.
Amazing.
Anyway, yeah. So it was like a little cooperative, and we had that for the last. I can't remember if it was 5 or 6 years.
Okay. So that's
Um,
that's still
so
going
that's been
on.
brilliant.
And
So no, last year
no.
was the last year with that
Oh,
actually, and
that's
then we've had to
pity. That
give up the
sounds
same.
so
It's such a shame
sweet.
because we loved that a lot. It was
Yeah,
brilliant, and everybody loved it because the tourist season gets really busy
exactly.
here in the
So is
village.
yeah, so is there not possibility of that starting up again?
Well, we've got another one actually in Grandtown on Spey, which is
Okay.
only a few miles up the road.
Uh-huh.
Um, and this is the first time I've actually managed to get some of my stuff in there.
Oh, super. Well done.
So I've done that,
Well
and I'm
done.
gonna help them out as well. So that's great. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Good.
Um, so that's how it started. Really, started off just making presents for
Mm-hmm.
people. Then got involved with our little craft shop, sold things through there, and then got myself on Facebook and
Uh-huh.
Instagram, and yeah, just been lucky with having orders through there.
And
And
so your characters are just so exquisite.
well, it's funny because um yeah, and then it's really, I'd say, only the last couple of years those have really developed, and I really started to develop my own designs
Mm.
and working with felt mostly,
Uh-huh.
and just found like focused in on that and got a proper little range of characters
Yeah.
and
Yeah, yeah,
so
because
no,
they're like a
and just
family, even though they're all
yeah,
so different, they're family. And I wanted to ask how you got into felt, but it was it a natural progression
I
somehow?
think it just
Mm.
happened organically.
Right.
um yeah, just seemed to be a natural progression
And
into that.
They
And
just,
I just love that so much.
they
And
seem so alive. Does that make sense? Do you resonate with
definitely,
that?
yeah.
And
Yes,
why
it
would you
does.
say, would you say it's because they're handmade?
Yes, I would. Yeah, definitely.
Has that
Yeah,
got a lot to do with it?
I
Do you
think it has.
sense, as opposed to, you know, plastic reproduction, for instance?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. Because I mean, so much love goes into handmade things, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
And
So that,
and because they're
yeah.
all just made individually,
Mm-hmm.
and they all start off as a little sketch and
Uh-huh.
then get brought to life in felt. And yeah,
I
I
love
just love
that.
it.
I
And
love that.
I just get so much satisfaction from making them,
Yeah, yeah. And
and it just
and
gives me great joy.
and
Yeah.
how, oh, I'm so happy. How about your clients? What's the feedback from clients?
Oh, well, they just, yeah, just what you said, really. They just
Mm.
said the same. They just feel that they're so alive, and
Oh, it's so special.
yeah, and it's great, and I love it. And people all come to me and say, "Oh, can you make such and such?" And and there's a lady actually, um, she's got a little gift shop up towards Aberdeen,
Uh-huh.
and she found me through the craft shop here in Carbridge and
Oh,
just got
wonderful.
in touch and said, "Oh, I'd love a few of your felt decorations." And then she was sort of
Great.
like, "How would you fancy?" She'll sort of get in touch every so often and say, "How would you fancy making such and such?" And she's like, "I know you like a challenge."
Oh, amazing. Oh,
And it's
that's
great
so
because that gives
amazing.
me ideas, and then I'm like, "Oh yeah, this is really good," get
Yes.
inspiration. But what I'll do is I'll either just suddenly get an idea in my head and like, all right, that's it. I gotta make say like llamas or unicorns or
Uh-huh.
whatever,
Uh-huh.
and get an idea in my head and just if I get an idea in my head, it doesn't matter what I'm doing at the time, I have to do it
Oh
there
my
and then.
word, isn't that the sign of an artist, whether you're an
Yeah, I think it
actor,
is,
a
isn't it?
dancer, a writer, a craftsperson? I'm exactly the same. If I don't act on that, say,
Oh,
I've been inspired for a show, for example, if I
yeah,
don't act on that by putting it down in
yes,
some
that's
form,
it.
whether it's a quick
Yeah,
recording on the phone or a text and bullet points for a précis, it's gone.
yes, you're absolutely right. Yeah, I have to just start
Yeah,
and draw that design and get
there
it
we go.
made.
So the muse, it still comes to you. So do you
Oh, it's
call
great. Yeah,
yourself
I
a
love that.
craftsperson, an artist, a mixture of the two, or something else completely different?
Yeah, I'd say a mixture of the two. I suppose I've always just thought of myself as a crafter.
Mm-hmm.
But then I think definitely artist as well because
Right.
you are create. I mean, you're
Yeah,
creating something, aren't
exactly.
you? So,
Exactly.
but yeah, yeah, and I love it. And then if I I just really get into find a design that I love and just everything stops and I can't think about anything else. It's great.
Takes over your life. I love it. I love it. Well, I'm definitely going to showcase some of your favorite pieces throughout this because I just love your work. Do you only do small characters, or would you take commissions for anything? If someone wanted, for example, a 10-foot tall dinosaur in
Oh gosh.
felt.
Oh, well, you see now I have never made anything larger than the little felt decorations that I did.
Ah,
Um,
okay.
so just
Wow.
purely because I
Uh-huh.
think it just would I would have to just charge too much for how long it would take to make it.
Okay,
I
okay. However, if someone was willing to come along and say, I respect the art and the craft, the work behind that craft, and there's an unlimited sum to make sure you're paid a beautiful fee to honor the art and the craft, would you do it?
I would certainly consider it. Yeah.
Great.
I think that is one thing I found quite attractive because And I know I've probably been guilty of it myself when I've been to craft fairs and things, and you
Mm,
look at the price of something and you're like, oh, because
yeah.
I think people just get so used to, you
Yeah.
know, getting
Mass
things for, but
produced prices,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah. And
Exactly.
you have to kind of get your head around how much time has gone into making
Mm-hmm.
something and really
Absolutely.
appreciate that, don't you, I think?
Exactly. I
Uh,
know. And as
but
you say,
and again,
love.
from my point of view, I found it quite a challenge to, yeah, um, put a price on things. You
Okay.
know,
Okay. So
it's kind of,
let me ask, do you have an issue with worth, with self-worth?
well, see, I think that's where it comes from. And I know a lot of other crafters and artists I've spoken to are exactly the same. They
Mm,
all say the same thing. Yeah,
yeah. So
it's that.
you're able to give a
Yeah,
lot, and
yeah.
do you have a limitation on what you're able to receive?
Oh, definitely, yes.
Mm. And what
Yeah.
and how about opening up to change that?
Oh, yeah, well, that is, I mean, I'm basically recognizing that that is something to work on.
Yeah, I just
And
something you've said here has really jumped out at me. You said so much love goes into
yeah,
making, and love is priceless. You know, we cannot put
true.
a price on love, and yet we all appreciate the value and how valuable love is. So I would love you to honor yourself and be able to receive in the same way you honor us with your beautiful artwork.
Oh, thank you.
Really, thank you. I want to say so many thanks for being so open, for being so honest, and really enlightening me about so many things. I am definitely going to look further into B12 and
Yeah.
the possible correlation between it being absent or missing in so many of us for so many ways. That's fascinating.
Oh, yes.
I
Well,
will,
it was,
yeah,
yeah,
I'll get links from you later so we can spread the word. But thank you so much for just opening your heart. And I just wish you 10 feet giant dinosaurs of magnitude to honor and unicorns to honor the love that you give us all with your beautiful characters. And may you absolutely receive abundance and our appreciation in every way, dear
oh, thank you
Sally.
so much.
Thank you so, so much. And we will talk
And no,
very
thank you
soon.
as
Thank you
well.
kindly. Lots and lots of love to you.
And you too.
Thank you, my darling. Do take care.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.